The House has resumed. Members, the House is debating Government Order of the Day number 1, which is the Smoke-Free Environments Tobacco Plain Packaging Bill. The Minister has moved the bill. The next call goes to Labor. And Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It's a great pleasure to rise and speak in favour of the Smoke-Free Environments Tobacco Plain Packaging Amendment Bill. Mr Speaker, Labor has undoubtedly the longest and most consistent track record of any parliamentary party for supporting measures that reduce the harm caused by tobacco. It goes right back, of course, to 1989, 1990, when the Smoke-Free Environments Act, the act that this bill amends, was first passed by the Labor government under then Health Minister Helen Clark. Subsequent to that, we have made a number of amendments to the Smoke-Free Environments Act, removing smoking from bars and restaurants, removing smoking from the workplace. And at times, it's fair to say, the debate has been rigorous, and many politicians have found themselves unable to support these measures. But Labor has always driven the agenda to reduce the harm caused by tobacco. And this is the role, I think, of progressive parties, because progressive parties do want to effect positive change for the people that they represent, and often Conservative parties find that change difficult to grasp. But what we find, of course, is that with the passing of time, those things that seemed like they were going to bring about the end of the world just become normal practice, and everybody accepts that it was indeed, at the time, the right thing to do. And Labor has a very proud history of being on the right side of the tobacco debate. We do so, sir, because our interests lie in representing the people of New Zealand. Our interests lie in doing the right thing for our citizens. Our interests certainly do not lie with the tobacco industry. And the tobacco industry wails and cries every time a measure like this is implemented. And the more they wail, the more I am convinced that we are doing the right thing. So it is outstanding, sir, that the vast majority of parties this evening will be supporting this first reading of the Smoke-Free Environments Tobacco Plain Packaging Amendment Bill. What it seeks to do is to get rid of the last bastion of tobacco advertising. We got rid of most advertising back when the Smoke-Free Environments Act was first passed, but the packaging has been the last opportunity that the tobacco industry has had to push its product. We made a significant step forward during the last term of Parliament when we got rid of the tobacco displays, and now we are pushing the last boundary of tobacco advertising by getting rid of this branding and packaging. There is no reason for branding to be used to differentiate cigarettes, because tobacco is tobacco is tobacco. It doesn't matter what you wrap it up in, it kills. 5,000 people are killed every year as a result of tobacco-related diseases. It kills around half its users. That is not a normal product that ought to be treated normally like any other consumable. It doesn't belong in dairies next to the bread and the milk and the lollies, and it doesn't deserve to have branding designed to entice young people to use this lethal product. Mr Speaker, we support this legislation, but we are a little bit concerned about one aspect of it in particular, and that is that the commencement of this legislation is handed over to an order in council. Effectively, the government gets to decide when this legislation comes into force. The reason for that, of course, is concerns around being sued by the tobacco industry as a result of a potential breach of trade agreements. And the real concern is that the Trans-Pacific Partnership will foist upon New Zealand rules and regulations that stop us from doing exactly this, which is to legislate in the best interest of the public health of New Zealanders. And we must be vigilant. We must be vigilant and ensure that any trade agreements we sign up to do not allow us to fall into that trap. And we are watching Australia closely, but I want New Zealanders to understand that the Hong Kong agreement that the agreement that Australia has with Hong Kong was poorly drafted in this area and left Australia exposed to the type of litigation that they are facing. New Zealand's trade agreements, generally speaking, have avoided that, and we need to ensure that should the Trans-Pacific Partnership go ahead, that it avoids this as well. That is why, sir, we are asking the government to be transparent about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That is why we are asking that when the text is finalised, it be published so that New Zealanders can see what is in it before the national government signs us up to it. Because we need to know if the Trans-Pacific Partnership will have any bearing on the implementation of this legislation. And we are concerned on this side of the House that the reason why the government does not want this legislation to be implemented as soon as it is passed by Parliament, and instead is handing that right over to itself, the government, is because it wants to keep the opportunity not to enforce this legislation in the back pocket in the event that it sells our right, our sovereign right, to legislate in the interests of the public health of New Zealanders off to American interests who are pushing their agenda through the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So that would be a very unfortunate consequence indeed, because it is clear that this measure has broad support in the Parliament. It has broad support out in the public as well. And New Zealand is a sovereign nation that ought to be able to say, we do not accept that 5,000 of our citizens are killed every year by tobacco. We do not accept that the tobacco industry has the right to push its product onto youngsters, to try to get them hooked at an early age, so that then when they do make the decision that they want not to smoke anymore, they are addicted to nicotine and unable to get away from the habit. We don't want the tobacco industry to be able to do that, and we don't want to give up our right to regulate in the interests of New Zealanders, sir. But with that one concern aside, we do support this legislation. It is the right thing to do, and we congratulate the Minister, Tariana Turia, for the work that she has done in advancing the cause of tobacco control while she has been a minister in this government. There is no doubt to those of us on this side of the House that in the absence of Tariana Turia, the progress that has been made over the last 5 years would simply not have happened. We would have probably rested on our laurels, allowing only the advances that the Labour government had driven to set in place, and we would have had to have waited for another progressive government to come in and continue the work. It's great that we haven't lost those 5 years, and we congratulate Tariana Turia for her efforts. Sir, this is just another step in a long line of measures that have, over the last 3 decades, moved us towards a smoke-free future, but now we have the absolute goal that we want New Zealand to be smoke-free by 2025. And, sir, I think that this is a very positive measure that will, over time, have the effect of reducing the number of young people who take up smoking, so they don't then have to have the lifetime battle of trying to get off nicotine and have to save themselves from the damage done by tobacco. It's not the silver bullet, We won't see instant results, but this is a positive measure towards making New Zealand smoke-free and preventing awful diseases that take life and cause enormous cost to the health system. Sir, we support this bill.
Dr. Paul Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to speak on the Smoke-Free Environments Tobacco Plain Packaging Bill.